Awesome.
Hey,
Hey, long time no speak. Trying to wedge myself in here.
you don't sound very comfortable.
Now you have to have some perspective here because I got a little tutorial, and the tutorial was if you push this button, which my knee is resting against, it's an $8,000 fix because all the halon comes out. If you don't push this button the right way, it's $220,000 fix. So you can probably appreciate the stress I'm under right now, and I can't see my feet. Yeah, he's FaceTiming me now. What's up?
Hello. Not much.
Oh, good. Here we go.
Summertime, love's in its power. Summertime, everything's just fine. But autumn came.
Charge 95%. We're in neutral. Push this off. Oh my gosh. I felt like I just did like 9 rounds of boxing right now. And look how tight this is. This is the button that opens it. Woo! Woo! There you go. My first ride in an Aston Martin Valkyrie. Now, I gotta go to the chiropractor. The Aston Martin Valkyrie is one of the most ambitious road cars ever built. It's the result of a collaboration between Aston Martin and Red Bull Racing, which can clearly be seen in its F1 design and insanely small cockpit. And look how tight this is. The name Valkyrie comes from Norse mythical figures, along with its continued tradition of naming its high-performance vehicles with names that start with the letter V. It comes in a coupe version, the Spider version, which is what we have here, and the AMR Pro track-only version for a combined total production of 275 units, so very, very limited. This one here, of course, is the Spider because of the removable carbon fiber roof, of which only 85 were produced, and as I suspect, the only one with a Golf livery, making this one incredibly rare. The Valkyrie comes with a 6.5-liter Aston Martin Cosworth naturally aspirated V12, producing roughly 1,000 horsepower and a red line of 11,100 RPM, making it the most powerful naturally aspirated engine ever produced for a production road car. It also comes with a hybrid boost similar to that of an F1 car, which contributes an additional 160 horse for a combined horsepower of 1,160 horse, weighing 2,271 pounds. So that's going to give you roughly 0 to 62 in 2.6 seconds, which is crazy. Now, with all that said, to me, the craziest part is that you can actually drive this to the track, race, and probably destroy everyone. Then, on your way home, stop at the grocery store to pick up some dinner. All in what's basically an F1 car with a license plate. If you want extreme, this is it. But just don't stop at Costco on the way home because the frunk, it's a little tight. I'll give you a tour of all the interesting bits, including the frunk, after the detail. First up is a healthy wash. Now, under normal circumstances, you guys know I like to lift the car and clean the underneath. I can't necessarily do that because it takes special lifts on a special car, sort of like the F1 when the car pulls in the pits, you lift it up from the front and the back, kind of the same thing here. So what I'm gonna do is crawl my very big body into this tiny little spot here. We have to wash the underneath, so yeah, wish me luck.
So this is where long arms come into play. But if you're at all claustrophobic, this is not the place to be.
So when you're washing your Valkyrie underneath, just a little tip for you, put your arms out like that and then slide underneath.
My shoulder's stuck.
To dry, I'm using Hydrate to minimize any chance of scratching the super soft paint. Okay, now that the Valkyrie's been washed and dried properly, next up is polishing. That's gonna be its own adventure because I don't have a car lift, so my knees are gonna explode. But before we get into that, I do have to address the rear, which is Cerakoted. And it's Cerakoted because it's right underneath the exhaust. God knows how hot that gets, but if you painted that, it would just evaporate or boil or whatever would happen. So there's Cerakote there, and I have to protect that during the polishing because if I hit it, that matte finish is gonna turn shiny and it's gonna look sort of blotchy. We don't wanna deal with that, so I have to do a bit of masking. But with respect to the paint, we have the typical swirls and scratches. Now, when you get that a regular car, any Mercedes or a Porsche or insert, whatever, from a dealership, there's always swirls and scratches. We get that. And that is a mass-produced car for the argument's sake. But when we get into supercars, let's say Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and then hypercars like this one, it's always a little strange to see them. You're like, hey, how much money do I need to spend to have the paint perfect? That's basically what all my customers say. And I say, what's interesting is there's two things happening, because you can see there are sanding marks right here. The first thing to keep in mind is a lot of these cars are handmade. So there's not a machine typically as it would be with a car that you get from the dealership. Let's call it a regular car. Those are all kind of mass produced. So these obviously, supercars and hypercars, are handmade. Number two, when they are handmade, the part that I think is the disconnect is once the paint is laid down, it's all, it's hot during, they bake them, that sort of thing. There's this swell that happens on the paint. And that swell, after you sand and sand and sand and sand, there's this, it's sort of big and puffy. And then as it gasses out or cools down, those sanding marks kind of rise to the surface. That's what we see right here. So in other words, I think during that manufacturing process, during that refinement process, I think more time needs to be given to the paint for it to gas out. Now, typically that's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It depends on the manufacturer. It depends on how much heat was put into it. There's 1,000 different factors, but I see it on every single hyper and supercar that I work on, which is crazy. But at the end of the day, not that big of a deal. I'm gonna sand this all out, and that's why they come here. We're gonna polish this out before we put the PPF on. Now, with that in mind, I probably have a day or two of just polishing. So we're gonna fast forward this a little bit, but you're gonna see a lot of the work, especially here. There's a couple of dots here and there to get this thing back into shape. Then, once everything is calm, cool, and collected, we're gonna put a PPF on it because it's going probably straight to the track. So lots to do. Step one is to mask off the surrounding edges of the Cerakote exhaust. For test one, I'm using a 6-inch wool pad and exfoliate. Then I followed up with a 6-inch foam pad and exfoliate for step number 2. From a few feet away, the paint looks fine. It's not until you pull the camera in and see the 50-50 do you notice the difference in depth and reflection. If you look real close here on the right side of the screen, there are tons of tiny little sanding marks that are detracting from the overall finish. Now, in defense of most manufacturers, these marks are likely not visible when the car leaves the factory floor. I mean, it looks perfect when it leaves, but only afterwards, 30 days, 60 days, maybe 90 days, do these reappear as the paint gasses out or shrinks. Typically, this is when I get the car or see the car and then remove those marks. After I finish the entire rear quarter, look how tight the circles around the overhead scan grip lights are now. The distinctness of image is spot on. On the rear, close to the engine cover, I noticed heavy sanding marks that weren't backed out after the paint process was finished. Again, this is fairly common with any hand-built car, especially on curved areas of the body like this one here. For this, I'm using the same process, wool, then foam, but in the 3-inch pneumatic to encourage more pad rotation than I would have with a larger 6-inch pad in the same tight area of that panel. Afterwards, with the sanding marks gone, I worked on a chemical drip that stained on the passenger side door. Now, it has the same look or feel as an acid etch from bird droppings, but I'm not exactly sure how that would be possible since it's obviously a brand new car. So either way, whatever it is, it's got to go, and I'm using that same process of a wool pad first and then foam. And because the paint is super soft, it came out. There's an imperfection right there. It's under the paint. Let me see if we can get that with a razor blade, that razor blade trick. That is in the paint. I'm not sure you're gonna be able to see that. Full disclosure here, I did a whole tutorial on how to take this out, and of course my microphone died. But the basic story is if a speck of dust gets stuck underneath the clear coat, in some cases, you can actually pop or pierce the clear with a razor blade and pop out that speck and then lightly sand. In this case, I did it with 3000 and then compound and polish out because of course you are digging into the clear coat, but very, very little. So the downside of the little hole that you're kind of putting in the clear coat that you're gonna sand out and it's gonna be perfectly fine is less than having this black speck that's gonna now be underneath PPF forever. So it is a little bit not for the faint of heart. I wouldn't recommend it for every situation, but in this particular one, it worked great. Now, on with the rest of the correction. There she is. That's your luggage compartment. All right, let's polish around the world's most expensive wiper blade. Once the compounding and polishing was completed, I re-washed the Valkyrie to be sure no residue or dust was left behind prior to applying the PPF. Next, each panel is hand cut to the approximate panel size, then stretched into place and carefully hand trimmed for a bespoke fit. This is a painfully slow and tedious process that took over a week, especially because there was more than one layer of film that was laid down on the lower parts of the car. This is what we refer to as stacking the film when you know it's likely going to get destroyed much faster than the other parts of the car.
Baby.
Okay, when it comes to the interior, there isn't a whole lot of it. So there's not a ton to do, but like you saw when I got in the car, I did put my foot here on the leather. But ultimately, it's a brand new car. We're just going to wipe it down, spray lather on a towel, and just kind of clean things up. This is when detailers can get into trouble real quick. Why? Because let's say you wanted to make the matte finish here. Of course, on the interior of cars, you want to have a matte finish. You don't want it shiny for the sun. If you went nuts and started polishing it and made it really shiny, you could cause some interference with the person driving. If you go crazy and start scrubbing all the Alcantara here, you might be able to, burn through something. So the point I'm trying to make is, the car's brand new. It hasn't been driven. I'm the first person, sort of, I would imagine, to be in here. We don't need to go nuts. A little wipe down, a little vacuum, clean it up, and we're good to go. Now, the real challenge here is the most difficult windshield I've ever cleaned. I'm actually excited to do a windshield for the first time in my life. So with that, we're gonna clean the interior real quick, vacuum up, and then we'll work on this crazy windshield. There's going to be sweat on this for sure, and I'm sure if you're the passenger, you're gonna need a little digest if you catch my gist there. No over touching. There you go. Interior clean. I'll wipe that other side. Vacuum. Done. So you can see here, very greasy. Normal and typical for brand new cars. That's all the plastics and all the materials gassing out and sticking to the inside of the windshield. Now, because of the slope of the windshield, we're gonna be using a special tool that's really designed for window tinters to get the window tint all the way down and to be able to scrub super deep into windshields like this one here. So first I spray a little bit on the tool itself and then on the windshield, let it do its thing for a minute. And then we're gonna go in first just by itself, and then I'll put a towel in there because there's no way you can get your hand in there. That white thing is a scrubber on the end, and then you put pressure on it, go back and forth. Looking good. After 2 weeks, the Valkyrie looks absolutely spectacular. I'm stoked. We have to start it, which is its own process. I'll show you that in a second, but check this out. We have a slammed Valkyrie in the studio, kind of neat. I called the engineer and I was like, hey, this seems to be getting lower day by day. And he said, yeah, that's totally normal. There's something going on with the hydraulics, which is, again, normal. It bleeds out over time. As soon as you start it up again, it recirculates and it'll pop up. But yeah, kind of cool to have my, my very own Valkyrie slammed right now. This thing is real tight. All right, let's get in and start it up. Now, for the startup procedure, I actually had to work with Aston Martin engineers because it is quite intensive, and I took a bunch of notes. So the first thing you want to do is obviously remove the battery here. You can see the charger pops off. You just turn it, and you're good to go. Because, yeah, it's going to get quite loud. In fact, I have to open up all the doors, and if I let it run in here, the fire department's going to come. I've had that happen in the past, so we're going to get this started and move it out immediately. So that's step one. Step two is over here. To get into the cockpit, there's a button under the door. Once you find it, you're going to hold it for 2 seconds. 1, 2. She pops open, and then there you go. Now, if you notice here, there is a green cord. That cord was put at the factory because this car hasn't been PPI'd yet. Just in case the door didn't unlock, I can pull on that and open up the door. Now, there is another button here. Gently push it, and it'll pop open the roof there, especially on a Spider. If you have your helmet and you're at the racetrack, there's just no way that you can get in without that roof open. To get into what's essentially an F1 car for the street, not exactly easy to do, especially as a tall person. Now, first thing to keep in mind is the seat is not designed for me because I don't own the car. The gentleman who does own it is a little bit shorter than I am. So this seat would normally go back, but in this case, you can see there's metal brackets there and it's not gonna go back. It's designed specifically for him. The second thing is the engineer told me that it's okay to step in onto the leather, which is kind of crazy for me, but that's what you're supposed to do. So I'm putting a little towel down because I'm crazy. No shoes on. First one goes in like this, and you put your foot right on the leather right there, which is enough to make me crazy. So you sit here, get your feet underneath. So this time I'm making my left leg straight. Oh yeah, that worked much better. Because when I first got in the car, in the trailer, there was no room here. My left leg got stuck. Okay, so mission one to get in, good. Next, you want to put the collar on here, and they said once you put the collar on, it's clicked in, you want to push this forward just a little bit. There's a little space here, right there. I don't know if you noticed that, but it was just the tiniest little millimeter, and they want to make sure that it's on, and then you give this a tug. Okay, so it's not coming off. Now, I actually have notes on all this because it's not just like procedure 1, 2, and 3. If there is a mistake, what they told me is from the battery perspective, if you do not start this the right way and you shut it off too early, it's a $220,000 fix because they have to disassemble everything with the battery. The second thing is there's a button over here that they said do not push, and I'll show you in the starting sequence when that lights up. And it feels as if you want to push that, but you can't push that. That's the halon system. Okay, so number one, feet off. My feet are not on the brake at the moment. My feet are off. Step one is to push the start button once. Okay, here we go. You ready? Push. Now what you're hearing are the fans turning on, and you're waking everything up. You can hear the fans. Lots of things are moving right now. Now the screen's just popped on. Now what we're going to be looking for here is because the car has been off for a while, you want to see on the steering wheel screen, there is a temperature gauge that's going to pop up. Now you can see the rear view cameras are popping up. They're starting to light up. They were a little bit dark, now they're brightening up. And then the main screen is lighting up. So you have to give it a couple seconds. Okay, at this point, my feet are still off. I'm going to push it a second time. This is called ignition 2. Now the screen lights up. And the idea here is you want to see a number here. The engineer was telling me if you do not see a number here, you can't proceed to number 3 or step 3. Now, warning, if you see over here, it says warning, low fuel. That's because the car hasn't been PPI'd. There's enough in here just to kind of go outside and start it up, but you wouldn't want to drive it around right now. So I can dismiss that. He made that very clear. So I can dismiss that. Then I'm going to go to the home, and I'm going to go to vehicle. And the idea is the HV battery state of charge. It's at 87%. This is the whole key here. If this drops too low and then you shut the vehicle off, that's when it approximately $220,000 to repair because you have to disassemble. So the idea is to keep that above 90 before you shut it off. Now we're ready for ignition 3, which is we make some noise. Everybody ready? Let's go to vehicle, 85%. Here we go. I'm pushing hard on the brake pedal right now, and we're gonna start. Sounds like an airplane right now. Okay, we're now in neutral. And if you see this little exclamation point, that is the e-brake. So the e-brake is right here, if you can see over my leg. To shut that off, we're gonna push and hold. And that popped right off. So now we're ready to move. To do that, we have to put it in first gear by clicking. We are now ready to move. Right now I'm in first gear because I just pulled out. To get into reverse, you push the neutral button. See, it goes to neutral, and then you hit the downshift. Now I'm in reverse. So now I can go backwards and look at my screen. Okay, so we're in the position that we want right now to do some photo shoots. What I'm gonna do is, you can see the vehicle button here. I push the vehicle button. This is everything, the HV battery state of charge. This has to be above 90% for me to be able to shut the car down. To do that, I push this button right here. And now everything is just gonna slowly go to sleep. There you go. The starting procedure for an Aston Martin Valkyrie. You gotta have notes. It's pretty crazy. Wasn't too bad. Looking good. Look, we've driven approximately 10 feet and I already got rocks. How to make a detailer nuts.